Greetings friends and welcome back to the Home Slice. Welcome to my new steel testing series where I'm combining multiple rope tests on the 40mm Manila rope, the Andy rope, with different steels so that we can compare different dual grit sharpening techniques and how dual grit affects different steels all at once. There'll be a graph at the end to summarize. In this video, we are testing out, once again, Vanax S35VN and CPM154 steel. If you didn't catch the last test, I tested all of these same steels with a fine edge to see how long the edges lasted. The edges that they're wearing on this video are a coarse diamond on one side, the Easy Lap 250 on Vanax, and then on the other two I've been getting pretty good results from Atoma stones. I just got an Atoma 400 grit stone, so the S35VN and the CPM154 are both sharpened with that stone on the coarse side, and the fine side I have taken up to a Veneve 3 to 5 micron diamond waterstone, and all of these have been stropped on leather with stroppy stuff compounds, stroppy stuff diamond emulsions, and they have been taken down to 0.25 micron. The reason for these particular testings is I didn't have the Atoma stone for the Vanax, but I've been liking the results and the feel of it, and it's not as worn out as my 250 grit stone. So that's the reason for the difference in the coarse stone. The reason for the sharpening protocol overall is that I did lots and lots of testing on Vanax in the background here that I didn't publish to come to the conclusion that the best way that it gets the best result is by all diamond. It's got enough carbon and enough carbide volume that you've sort of hit that threshold that I found with the dual grit edges, that you just get a crisper edge and a better overall result of how many rope cuts you get if you go all diamond. I've opted to sharpen the other two with all diamond as well, mainly to make sure that the results are directly comparable as much as possible. Speaking of results, the first thing you'll notice if you were watching at the beginning is that the BESS is not as low as my fine edge tests. I find on dual grit edges they can get under 100 grams BESS, but sometimes if I take all the time to make sure that that has happened and they are indeed under 100 grams, I both get a bit obsessive and strop them until they are a bit slick and a bit dead, because I just want to see the number, which is less fun in sharpening and also cuts through the rope less times. So I've done a moderate amount. I think I've done 10 passes on each side with stroppy stuff diamond, 5 on the 1 micron and 5 on the 0.25 micron. And so the best numbers are not super low. I find that I can get decently good results in these rope tests and in actual use from dual grit edges. I should specify that you can get under 100 grams BESS on a dual grit edge, but it's quite steel and stone pairing dependent, and your deburring process or the removing of damaged metal needs to be really effective early on so that you still retain that aggression, but you see the number drop. It's just that a lot of these manufactured knives have steels that sometimes are not hardened into the upper reaches of, the 60-something sort of HRC range. And with that kind of ductility, you can get an effective dual grit edge, but it often has a little bit more flexibility to it. And so generally, I see results anywhere from just under 100 to up around 250 grams. Usually if it's over 250 grams, it's not a good edge. But there have been a few that have been in the 200 to 250 that have exhibited sufficient sort of durability and cut for a long time. On screen now is the video speed, which I've sped this up to. I've basically just sped it up to where once I've said all the useful things I have to say, the video will be done. But coming to our results now, as the test is beginning to wrap up, CPM154 cut the rope 13 times. That's around a 60% increase from the fine edge. S35VN cut the rope 11 times, and that's roughly a 22% increase over the fine edge result. And Vanax cut the rope 20 times, which is about a 100% increase. Now, some things I have to mention is that I tested a lot more sharpening stones and protocols on Vanax. So overall, Vanax is seeing the biggest result, but that could be due to the care that I put into finding just the perfect thing for it. I'm not sure. Overall, I would say they have all had a measurable increase in edge retention, which is what I'm looking for with dual grit sharpening. From this test, it appears that Vanax may be a pretty good candidate for dual grit sharpening, and CPM154 also has seen a large increase, and we've seen the lowest increase in S35VN. I would say that that correlates to my experience. I've sort of drifted away from S35VN as a steel, not that there's anything wrong with it. I just find that my methods for sort of optimizing the steel sort of don't give as good of a boost as certain other steels at times. Here's a graph, and things to note on this graph is the blue line that you have there is the fine edge of Vanax. You can see that it started out much keener than the other knives, and this has been the best fine edge result that we have had on any of these high carbon steels so far is 10 cuts. S35VN cut 9 times on the rope, and CPM154 cut 8 times on the fine edge. So each of these results has exceeded by a bit the highest number that we have had in this new testing series. And some interesting observations is that the keenness of CPM154 was really, really good for the first 5 cuts above the 300 mark, even after going through that 30 millimeter Manila rope. So CPM154 had the best early stage keenness, and I would say that that definitely does line up with my experience of CPM154. We've got a good amount of edge retention in the front end in that steel, in my opinion. And then CPM154 sort of falls off to be the lowest steel and flips places with S35VN. So very interesting that S35VN was not super great at first, but that working edge sort of zone from like 5 to 10 cuts actually performed better than CPM154. Vanax is a little up and down, and I do find that as the apex is worn and changes shape, you do get a little bit of variance. I'm sorry if it's a bit noisy. It's not really that the steels are getting a lot sharper or duller. It's just the changing shape of the apex makes the line wobble a little bit. The last observation that you can see is that Vanax cut for several cuts in the like 390s range between 10 and 15 cuts, and then the edge seemed to have a little recovery before plummeting off, which is something I also often see. Usually edges will give one good reading before they finally die. I have no idea if there's some microphysics behind that or what's going on there. But it should be noted that although the edge retention above 400 grams best effectively doubled on Vanax, that the late in the game, the back end edge retention, the working edge, was not amazing. It wouldn't have been an amazing knife to cut with. It just held enough to stay under that 400 gram line and stay sort of functionally sharp. Well, it's interesting to me and hopefully to you as well. I hope you guys are having as much fun as I am with this series. Those are the observations I have for today. If you want to see the fine edge test where these guys duked it out with a fine edge on Veneve 3 to 5 micron stone, I'll put that on screen now. For the rest of you, I'll say peace out from the home slice. You guys have a wonderful day. Goodbye.